Hey y'all, T-Hand141 here. Uh, just got a few comments and thoughts about last night. Was February 4th, and I went to the Lewis County Courthouse, and over, I think it was 324 people showed up, which is awesome. That's wonderful. People standing up for their rights, for their Second Amendment right, and exercising their First Amendment rights, um, and some very heartfelt um, speeches and everything went on, and it was wonderful. It really was. It was great to be part of it. I live streamed it. Sorry about the sound on that one. Some of the people spoke really low, and I just didn't want to be disruptive and try to get any closer. Some thoughts uh, that I had. I would first like to address the opponents of the Second Amendment sanctuary. The ones who spoke uh, did a very good job. Um, the statistics weren't quite as accurate as I had hoped. They left suicide in um, to the statistics, but it was good. They exercised their First Amendment right, and I believe we did a very good job of receiving them and not being disrespectful. Um, Guys, we aren't a mob. We're law-abiding citizens. We are not looking to create a situation of the Wild Wild West. Good Lord, the Wild Wild West wasn't even the Wild Wild West we see on TV. Um, uh, Guns were everywhere, and as one um, former president, I believe, said, an armed society is a polite society, and that's true. I I notice that when I am armed, I avoid conflicts at all costs. You see somebody arguing off to the side, you avoid that. You don't jump into that, because the last thing anybody wants um, that is sane is to harm someone. I love people. I I I I share the gospel because I love them so much that even though I know they may despise me for it, I love them enough to warn them about the wrath to come for those who don't believe. And I want to address the one lady. She made a wonderful, impassioned statement that our kids had to do drills in schools now. Active shooter drills, I would imagine she was referring to, and that our children are frightened. Lack of knowledge breeds fear. And I want to ask, and if somebody would like to open that dialogue, that would be great. Who is scaring the children? I'm not scaring children. In New York State, if I am legally carrying my firearm, nobody knows it. We are a concealed only state. Um, there's a lot of hyperbole out there, that guns go off by themselves and kill people by themselves, and that's just not true. But when I am armed, when I am armed, I guarantee you, and I promise you, you have no reason to fear. You have no reason to fear me. You have no reason to fear the bad man with a gun. Because I promise, I will not only protect my life and the life of others, but yours as well. And I believe that all of the people that signed that petition that are legal gun owners would do the same. Ma'am, you mentioned that your husband is an avid hunter, and I applaud that. That is awesome. Hunters do a great service for conservation, keeping the deer populations down, for traffic safety, keeping the deer populations down. Ma'am, under the red flag laws that we currently have in this state, if a loved one or family member or just somebody that's mad at you were to call in and actually lie about, you say you're not a gun, your husband owns guns, but they actually lie and say that you were saying that you wanted to harm yourself, and you had talked about using one of your husband's guns to end it all, say. God forbid this would ever happen, and God forbid that you would ever have these feelings. They could call, go to a judge, which they're calling that due process. Under the Constitution, a judge issuing a warrant is not due process to remove property. But they could call, and a judge would issue an order to show up your house and remove all of your husband's firearms. This would be unacceptable, because your husband has done nothing wrong. You have done nothing wrong. Just someone says you did. It's hearsay. It wouldn't be allowed in the court of law. But now your freezer is going to go empty for possibly years for your husband to get his rights back. Mind you, he has had no ability to face his accusers. He has had no ability to address the judge and to answer in his own defense before being removed of property. And I know you say, but we have to keep people safe. We have to keep people safe. Somebody, telemarketer. Anyway. No, ma'am. Sheriff Carpinelli would give his life, as we heard the other night, to protect not only you, but your rights. But he cannot keep you safe. Anyone who says that the police officers carry their guns to protect you is wrong. They carry their guns to protect themselves because they put themselves in harm's way for us. And I appreciate that. I was speaking, and this kind of goes along with your fears and your pleas to keep people and our children safe. I was speaking to one of the legislators last night after the meeting, and I read him this, and a lot of you know this, and I made it clear I was not telling him anything he did not already know. He is a servant of the United States Constitution. Therefore, he probably knows this. And this is just a short piece of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they were endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you're like me in high school, that's as far as you memorized. But the next part is important. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments were instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. Guys, we don't want another revolution. We don't want any Americans having to bear their arms on other Americans. Absolutely not. Violence is the last recourse for anyone. But why are there governments? Why was there a council meeting? Why is there a council of these great people that are doing a great job keeping, governing us and being our representatives? The reason for a government is stated by the same people who made the Constitution, that to secure these rights. Legislators of Lewis County and legislators of any county in any state, this is not to secure. Government was not instituted to secure state funding. I was told that 80% of our, and I hope I'm quoting this right, that 80% of our funding for our budget comes from the state. And that Governor Cuomo would have no qualms in cutting it off if we defy him. You are not in your position as our legislator, as our governor, as our representative. You are not in that position to secure state funding. You are in that position not to keep us safe. That is not your job. Under the Constitution, under the Declaration of Independence, governments exist to secure these rights. What rights? Look at the Constitution, which sets up the government, and look at the Bill of Rights, which has enshrined certain rights. The Bill of Rights, the First Amendment. You guys were gracious to us legislators to allow us to assemble. You didn't put up any, but we went through security without a hassle. The officers that kept us safe while we were there were smiling. They knew why we were there, and whether, I have no clue whether they agree or disagree with us, because I didn't ask them. But they were very welcoming. The legislators were very welcoming. There was a list of people right of the floor, I believe it was called, to speak, and they were very open to that. There was even Sheriff Carpinelli arrived there late. So he didn't get to sign that list. They allowed him to speak. There was another gentleman that they allowed to speak that was not on the list. They accommodated us, and I greatly appreciate that, for one. But your whole reason for the position, for the position that you're in, is not to keep us safe. It's not to protect the children. It's not to protect us. It's to protect our rights. I would present to you that if you keep our freedoms our liberties safe and sacred, then we will be able to protect ourselves. We are not against laws. In fact, the say-so, the Second Amendment sanctuary ordinance retains that we would be under federal law. We're not looking for lawless government. We are not asking for felons to be given firearms. Under the federal law, they have lost their rights to vote. They have lost their rights to possess firearms. And there is a process in which that they can get them back. And I would encourage anyone who is in that position, get your right to vote back. Get your right to bear arms, keep and bear arms back. Get your rights back. People died to give you those rights and freedoms. But we're not asking to give criminals firearms. We're asking you to stop restricting our rights in order to keep us safe. You're not in danger from us. You're in danger from people who will walk through your restraining orders. You are in danger from people who will keep building meth labs time after time and killing our children with fentanyl. You're in danger of the guy who will, if he can't get his hands on a gun, he will attack with knives. Britain is having to restrict their access to knives because they removed the firearms. Criminals will find a way to kill. We know this. There's proposed legislation that will make us get a prohibitive insurance, $1 million insurance policy to own firearms. Why doesn't that apply to the First Amendment? Got to have an insurance policy. Oh, how about the right to counsel? Should we have insurance to ensure that we can afford our own counsel? Oh, wait, New York outlawed USCCA and NRA self-defense insurance, so that if, God forbid, a permitted lawful carrier, that God forbid if a lawful firearms concealed carrier does have to use his weapon in self-defense, that he can get representation and not lose his house and his land and everything else that's near and dear to him to defend himself and stay out of prison. That was outlawed. By a law, you say? Nope. They used, I believe it was a New York State Department of Commerce secretary, I believe. Ammunition. Some of the stuff on ammunition. My goodness. Anyone who wants to be proficient. One of the laws literally states that you have to take a gun qualification course. Okay. You have to have a license, a hunting license. You have to take a gun qualification course and qualify 90% effective. Okay. 90% of your bullets have to hit the mark before you're allowed to own a gun or buy a gun. Or, guys, one of the other things they're saying, and that's I'm all for safety. I'm all for classes and such. One of the other bills being proposed that would negate that ability, literally make it impossible for you to get that 90% effective rate on your firing, says that you can only have enough ammo to double your magazine capacity. Listen, these people who are on the United States shooting teams, I think his name Jerry Maguire is one of the greatest 3-gun shooters ever. They fire thousands of rounds a month to stay proficient. If you carry a firearm, it is your responsibility, just moral responsibility, if nothing else, to be proficient with that firearm. Absolutely. Any round you send down range in a self-defense incident, you own it. If you hit somebody, an innocent person, that's on you by the laws of I believe, federal law. Be proficient with your firearm. These laws they're proposing, they're saying, okay, you have to be proficient, and you know, that sounds common sense. That makes a lot of sense to say, hey, if you carry a firearm, you have to be 90% accurate. That's not asking too much, is it? But then we're going to cut back your ability to have ammunition in a 120-day period, I believe it is. We're going to take away your ammunition so you can't practice, so you can't be proficient. I'm sorry, but I don't care. Very few people in this world can pick up a firearm and fire it 90% accurately off the first time they ever pick up the weapon. This is just backdoor attacks on the Second Amendment. And that's the Second Amendment. That shall not be infringed federally, and under the New York State Constitution, cannot be infringed. Not shall not will not, cannot be infringed. I was also told by the legislator that Sheriff Carpinelli, because I brought up that the SASO would only affect county, like the sheriff's office, and he said, well, the Sheriff Carpinelli took an oath to enforce the laws of the county and the laws of the state. I wish I would have had the presence of mind to tell him any law that violates the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, or the New York Constitution is null and void. Now, got to go to court to prove that it is unconstitutional, and with a lot of judges out there, there are some very liberal judges in New York. Guys, I've gone way longer than I planned on. Thank you for standing up for your rights. If you are anti-gun, that's fine. You have a right to be anti-gun. But when the Second Amendment falls, when all the guns are taken away, they're going to come after your freedom of speech. They aren't really waiting. They're going to come to your right to assemble. They're going to come after your rights. Look at some of the stupid laws coming out of Albany. Bail reform. A man was let out on without bail. He was released without bail, raped and murdered a 90-year-old lady. And people say, oh, it's the law. It's the law. Guess what? The law is wrong. People are literally dying from the stupidity coming out of Albany. I don't care if you're Democrat. I don't care if you're Democrat light. I don't care if you're Republican. I don't care if you're ultra-conservative. You are an American. If you ever served in the military or in office, you took an oath to the Constitution of the United States to protect and defend it from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Please stay true. Though they try to subvert it, stay true to the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of New York. Please. Because when we are defenseless, I believe it was Abraham Lincoln that said, it is the first duty of government to protect the people's freedoms. If the government attempts to protect the people, liberty will die. I don't need you to keep me safe. I need you to keep me free so I can keep me safe and the ones I love. No one is in any danger from me or anyone that I know of in this Second Amendment movement. Thank you. Y'all have a great day. I'm out.